The Gomu Gomu no Mi, otherwise known as the Gum Gum fruit in English, belongs to Monkey D. Luffy. And what better fruit is there to start than the fruit that belongs to the protagonist? The Gum Gum fruit is classified as a paramecia type devil fruit. The ability this grants the user is turning their body into rubber. Their body can stretch, bend, bounce, inflate, and twist like rubber. Unlike most other devil fruits, the effects of the Gum Gum fruit are always active, making the user's body permanently rubber, meaning that the user becomes completely immune to blunt damage such as hand-to-hand combat, blunt weapons, bullets, and even cannonballs, all of which will just bounce off of his skin. Situations that would normally kill someone, like falling from a great height or heavy collisions or getting stuck between walls that would normally kill someone, normal, would not even be lethal for Luffy. The only weakness about this fruit is that Luffy is weak to bladed weapons such as swords. Because this fruit belongs to Luffy, and by God, this man is a fighting genius, it makes this fruit dangerous in his hands, and it shows in his transformations and his ideas for his attacks. Luffy has these sort of gears, which are just technique transformations for him, and the first one is his first gear, Gear 1. In this form, which is just his base form, all his attacks begin with him saying Gum Gum. For example, Gum Gum Pistol, or Rocket, or Gum Gum Bazooka. Luffy's second gear is a technique that uses the power of the Gomu Gomu no Mi to enhance the user's speed and mobility. This technique involves Luffy speeding up the blood flow in all or selected body parts in order to provide them with more oxygen and nutrients. This makes him much faster and much more powerful. This technique uses much more oxygen and energy, using up more food and causing Luffy to pant heavily. The increase in his metabolism causes him to be hungrier than usual, or even have paralysis type effect after prolonged use. However, after the time skip, it appears that Luffy has finally been able to master this technique. Every attack in his second gear, Luffy adds jet to it. So instead of it just being Gum Gum Pistol, he simply adds jet. An example of this would be Gum Gum Jet Pistol or Gum Gum Jet Bazooka. For Luffy's third gear, it's a transformation or technique where Luffy basically inflates a part of his body and enhances the strength of that. He corks his mouth with his thumb and bites into his thumb joint, making a small opening, and blows hard into his bones, which then inflates his arm. He's then able to transfer the air through his entire body, requiring the torso to act as an interface for various limbs. Luffy blows so much air into his body that when they are all focused on a single limb, they become the size equivalent to that of a giant's. Gear 3 does have a negative side effect though, as after undoing Gear 3, Luffy's body shrinks to that of a small child, and he'll stay in that form for some time. Because his hand is that of a giant, Luffy simply adds the word giant to his attack names. For example, being Gum Gum Giant Pistol or Gum Gum Giant Whip. Gear 4 is a form that has 3 different sub-forms. This transformation is a transformation technique that uses the power of the Gum Gum fruit and armament hockey. It has multiple variations that enhance some amount of the user's defense, speed, and power beyond their normal limits. The first form of Gear 4 is called Bound Man or Bounce Man, however you want to call it. Luffy's proportions become warped and his body becomes much larger in size to that of sort of like a rubber ball. His upper torso and arms are coated in armament hockey, and as a side effect of his round body, he's incapable of standing still on the ground and instead constantly bounces on the spot. Luffy is capable of retracting in his arms and legs inside of his body, unleashing blows of devastating power, as well as being able to change the direction of his attacks, and defense also increases, with most attacks bouncing off of his body. The second form of Gear 4 is Tank Man, which Luffy basically just becomes bigger and increases his defensive abilities, allowing him to use his body as a weapon via the recoil from attacks, blasting opponents away. The third form of Gear 4 is called Snake Man, which is a slimmer and focuses on offense, lacking the defensive capabilities of the other two forms. Luffy is granted a tremendous increase in attack speed and frequently changes the direction of his attacks to assault his opponent from every direction. Gear 4 does have a time limit, and after such time limit, he will be unable to use Haki for another 10 minutes until it recharges. Now, I was kind of hesitant on putting the true name of the Gum Gum fruit, but I thought since Gear 5 is part of it, I might as well. So because the government was worried and afraid of the ridiculous true power of this fruit, they renamed it to the Gum Gum fruit. However, the real name of the Gomu Gomu no Mi is actually the Hito Hito no Mi, Model Nika, which is a a mythical Zoan type fruit, which grants the user's body to be rubber and increase strength and freedom, allowing them to fight in any way that they please. However, because Shanks told Luffy that it was the Gum Gum fruit, Luffy believed that his body was rubber, therefore his body was rubber. Gear 5 of this form is essentially the awakening of his devil fruit. Gear 5 was created during the climax of the raid of Onigashima, as a result of Luffy awakening his devil fruit for the first time since the Void Century. After awakening, Luffy gains even greater freedom and demonstrates many new abilities, such as being able to freely manipulate the shape and size of his body instead of focusing more on hardening himself using armament hockey. He takes on more of a cartoonish fighting style, as well as being able to grant the environment around him the same properties as rubber, which allowed him to bounce and attack back at Kaido by pulling the ground up, as well as being able to stretch objects he touches like rubber, including living things and even lightning. As pointed out by Kaido, Luffy's power now has the characteristics of both Paramecia and Zoan types.